The Federal Reserve, America's central bank, is caught in a massive scandal. They're accused of blowing billions of your dollars on an unbelievably lavish renovation of their headquarters. But here's the kicker. The very people screaming about the waste, they actually pushed for some of the most expensive features. This isn't just about a building. It's about power, money, and a shocking twist you won't believe. I'll reveal the full story, including who really wanted all that fancy marble, by the end of this video. You don't want to miss it. So, what's going on? The Fed's headquarters in Washington, D.C. includes a couple of historic buildings from the 1930s that desperately needed a serious overhaul. They hadn't been fully renovated in almost a century. We're talking major structural repairs, getting rid of dangerous stuff like asbestos and lead contamination, and replacing super old systems like plumbing, electricity, heating, and fire alarms. They also needed to meet modern safety and accessibility standards. Think safer workplaces and easier access for everyone. This huge project, approved by the Fed's board in 2017, was originally estimated to cost about $1,900,000,000. But guess what? It's now projected to hit $2.5 billion. That's about $700 million over budget. The Fed's chief, Jerome Powell, says these cost jumps happen for legitimate reasons. They hit unexpected problems underground, like finding way more asbestos and lead than they thought, toxic soil, and a higher than expected water table. Plus, inflation sent prices for materials like steel and cement skyrocketing after the project began in 2019. These factors, along with necessary design adjustments, are what drove up the costs. Powell insists that the Fed is being good stewards of public resources. He flat out denies that the renovated offices will include fancy extras like private elevators, VIP lunchrooms, or luxurious rooftop gardens. He explains that what some call a garden terrace is actually a green roof for managing stormwater and energy efficiency, something you see on many other federal buildings. The VIP dining rooms are just old conference rooms being renovated, which are sometimes used for meetings over meals. And as for the marble everyone's talking about, he says it's mostly original marble they're putting back, with new domestic marble only used where the old was damaged or to meet historical building guidelines. To prove their transparency, Powell even asked the Fed's own independent watchdog, the Inspector General, to conduct a new review of the project's costs, contracts, and management. The Fed also launched a public website dedicated to answering questions about the renovation. And here's a crucial point that many people miss. Taxpayers do not foot the bill for these renovations. The Fed funds itself through the interest it earns on its investments and fees charged to banks. But what if I told you the push for some of these luxurious materials came from a very unexpected place? Stick with me, because that's where the story gets really wild. Now, let's talk about the other side of this story. Former President Trump and his allies are absolutely furious about these costs. They're calling it an ostentatious overhaul and accusing Powell of grossly mismanaging the Fed. Trump himself has called the project disgraceful and even suggested it could be a fireable offense for Powell. He's likened the building to a palace, or even the infamous Palace of Versailles. Why are they so focused on a building renovation? Simple. It's a strategic move to pressure Powell to cut interest rates. Trump has been relentlessly pushing Powell to lower rates, arguing it would boost the economy and reduce the government's debt costs. He's called Powell a numble and Mr. Too Late, claiming the Fed's current rates are choking the housing market and making it hard for Americans to buy homes. But Powell says current interest rates are necessary to control inflation, which Trump's trade tariffs actually make worse. Trump's team sees the renovation as a way to undermine Powell's credibility. They claim Powell might have lied to Congress about the project's features or made major changes without proper approval, potentially violating federal law. To really turn up the heat, Trump recently appointed several loyal allies to the National Capital Planning Commission, a body that oversees federal buildings in Washington. This move is seen as a way to increase scrutiny and pressure on the Fed. White House officials have even demanded a site visit to the Fed headquarters to inspect the project themselves. But now, for the part you've been waiting for, the truth about that premium marble Trump and his allies are complaining about, it turns out Trump's own appointees were the ones who heavily pushed for it. Back in 2020, during the design review for the renovation, the Fed actually proposed a sleek glass curtain wall design. They wanted it to reflect the central bank becoming a more transparent institution. But here's where it gets crazy. Trump's appointees on the Commission of Fine Arts strongly opposed the glass idea. One commissioner, a Trump appointee, argued that glass looked temporary and fragile. He and other Trump appointees insisted that the Fed headquarters as a bank building should look solid and eternal, and demanded the use of white Georgia marble in the next design. Even though other commissioners voted this down initially, the Fed's architects came back 6 months later with plans that included the marble. This shift to marble, pushed by Trump's own people, likely increased costs, even though the commission itself doesn't consider expenses in its reviews. It's a classic example of blaming others for problems you helped create. This bizarre battle isn't just about marble. It's about a fundamental power struggle that could shake the very foundations of how our economy works. And I'm going to explain exactly why that matters to your wallet next. This entire renovation battle highlights a much bigger fight: the independence of the Federal Reserve. The Fed is designed to make decisions about interest rates without political interference from the White House or Congress. This independence is crucial for financial markets and for keeping inflation under control. If investors start to believe the Fed is just taking orders from the president, it could seriously hurt its credibility, leading to instability and higher long-term interest rates for everyone. Top financial leaders like the CEO of JP Morgan Chase have publicly said the Fed's independence is absolutely critical. Even some Republicans in Congress have warned that firing Powell would be a huge mistake and would undermine the credibility of the United States. Despite Trump saying it's highly unlikely he'd fire Powell unless there was fraud, his team continues to hammer on the renovation costs. Why? Because they know they can't legally fire him just for setting interest rates. The law says that Fed leaders can only be removed for cause, which means something like serious wrongdoing, not just policy disagreements. Legal experts are divided on whether a building renovation, even if it's over budget, would count as cause in a court of law. It's a huge, untested legal question that could spark a massive fight in the courts, causing major upheaval in financial markets. So this building project becomes their public weapon to make his life miserable, and they hope push him to resign or become more agreeable. It's a fight happening not in a courtroom, but in the court of public opinion. Jerome Powell's term as Fed chief ends in May 2026. Until then, this clash over a building with its surprising origins will continue to play out, impacting not just the Fed, but the entire American economy. Think of the Federal Reserve as the conductor of a huge orchestra, the U.S. economy. For the music to be harmonious and on tempo, that conductor needs to be able to lead without someone constantly trying to grab their baton or dictate which notes they play. When that independence is questioned, the whole performance risks falling into chaos, and everyone in the audience, that's us, the American people, feels the discord. So what do you think about this whole situation? Let me know in the comments below. If you found this video insightful, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more in-depth explanations of complex financial topics, and ring the bell icon so you never miss an update.